We know that the title of saint is given by Christian tradition to a person who possesses the qualities of mercy, love, compassion, and peace. But this saint stands out for her dark and bloody past. Time, 10th century AD. The place is Kievan Rus. It is an ancient kingdom that included Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. The heroine of today's story is a princess, but not like the fairy tale princesses we know in our childhood memories. Our story today is a story of love and revenge. And not just any revenge, but revenge that reaches the level of total annihilation of an entire people. But before we start our story, please, my friends, do not forget to support the channel if you like the video by sharing it with your friends and subscribing to the channel to watch the next videos. Because your support is what encourages me to continue to provide content for your enjoyment. Now, let's get back to our story. The princess of today's story was a descendant of the early Vikings who settled in what is now Russia. She married Prince Igor when she was 15 years old in 945 AD. Prince Igor ascended the throne after the death of his father, King Oleg. Before his death, King Oleg had conquered most of the lands and tribes that inhabited the area except for one tribe, the Drevlian tribe. A tribe known for their rebellion against Igor's ancestors, but despite their rebellion, King Igor's father was able to subdue them and oblige them to pay taxes. But after the death of the king and the assumption of Prince Igor's rule, this tribe rebelled again and refused to pay the heavy taxes that Igor's father had imposed on them. So Igor decided to march his army to the Drevlian capital to subdue them and take taxes from them. The news reached the Drevlian tribe. They were fully prepared, and an ambush was set for King Igor and those with him. Indeed, the army and his king fell into the ambush, and Igor was killed in a gruesome way. The tribal leader ordered 2 trees to be bent and tied to the king's legs. Then the 2 trees were left to straighten again, and the result was that the young king's body was torn in half. The king was killed, leaving behind his young widow Olga and his 3-year-old son, Sviatoslav. Princess Olga ascended the throne as the young prince's guardian until he reached adulthood. But the young princess's heart was burning with hate and anger, and revenge became her main concern. Until the opportunity came on a platter. After the Drevlian killed King Igor, they underestimated the young queen's abilities. They even went so far as to ask the queen to agree to marry their prince, Prince Mal. The goal, of course, is to take over the kingdom. For this purpose, 20 tribal elders went to Princess Olga to propose marriage. Surprisingly, the princess agreed to the proposal, but asked them to return to their boats to enter the city in the morning, carried on the shoulders of her soldiers as a kind of honor. But the plan for revenge was already in motion. Olga ordered her soldiers to dig a trench. The 20 men were brought in on shoulders and thrown into the trench to be buried alive. The princess stood at the edge of the trench and asked the men if they liked the honor they had received. They replied with their last breaths that it was worse than the death of her husband Igor. This should have quelled the fire of anger in the heart of the princess, but the scheme of revenge continued. Princess Olga sent a letter to Prince Mal to tell him that she agreed to marry him, and that she let his men engage with the people to prepare the news of her marriage to him. She asked him to send his best and strongest men to escort her to him to finalize the marriage. Prince Mal sent his best commanders to escort Princess Olga. When the commanders arrived, the princess greeted them warmly and offered them to enjoy a hot bath in her private bath. Indeed, they all gathered in the bathroom to take a bath and rest. And it was their eternal rest. The princess simply set fire to the building, and the building burned to the ground, and no one survived to tell what happened. Then she sent for Prince Mal, asking him to hold a banquet in honor of her late husband for her and her men. Of course, the prince would not refuse any request for the princess, so the banquet was held, and the princess headed with a procession of her men to the capital of the Drevlian tribe, and the Drevlian soldiers ate and drank until they were drunk, but suddenly, without warning, Olga's soldiers drew their swords to kill 5,000 men from the Drevlian army. Despite all these deaths, the revenge is not over yet. Here the Drevlian were terrified of the angry princess and offered to make peace and pay taxes, but it was too late. The princess laid siege to the Drevlian capital for more than a year, until they begged for mercy. The princess announced to the Drevlian people that she would not impose heavy taxes on them, but in return she asked each house to give her 3 pigeons. Yes, as you have heard, and because of their suffering throughout the year of the siege, they immediately accepted this small price and gave the princess what she wanted, and in return, outside the walls of the city, the princess's men were working in full swing to carry out the final revenge. The pigeons they had obtained from the Drevlian had pieces of cloth tied to their feet. When darkness fell, the cloth was set on fire and the pigeons were sent home. And you can imagine what happened. The whole city was on fire. Every house, neighborhood, and street was on fire with vengeance. People went out to safety, but the swords of Princess Olga's soldiers were on the lookout. Only the lucky ones were allowed to rebuild their homes and pay taxes later. Here the princess achieved her revenge, and the fire of hatred and anger in her heart was extinguished. But the question is how Olga became a saint despite all this brutality and bloodshed. Before we answer this question, I would like to remind you to subscribe to the channel and share the video, as I know that some of you may have forgotten to do so. As for the answer to the previous question, according to ancient documents, Queen Olga was a pagan, but after completing her revenge, the princess received an invitation from Emperor Constantine VII to visit his kingdom. The invitation was to convince the princess to convert to Christianity. And indeed, Princess Olga converted to Christianity and returned to her people to convince them to convert. She was the first ruler of the Rus-Kievan kingdom to convert to Christianity. She contributed greatly to the spread of Christianity in what is now Eastern Europe, and the Russian Orthodox Church canonized her as a saint in 1547 AD. This brings the curtain down on one of the most horrible and bloody revenge operations in history, and the avenger is a woman who became a symbol of revenge and love in the same time. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.